Welcome to CoI'Q, a first-of-its-kind video program about health innovators, early adopters, and influencers, and their stories about riding the roller coaster of healthcare innovation. I'm your host, Dr. Roxie, founder of Legacy DNA Marketing Group, and it's time to raise our CoI'Q. Welcome back to the show, CoI'Q listeners. On today's episode, I have a fantastic guest with us, Lisa Suennen, and she is a woman of many talents, many titles, many awards, and so I'm going to actually, her introduction would probably be the entire show. So I'm going to actually just hand this over to her and let her tell us a little bit about her background and what she's doing these days and kind of share some of these highlights with us.
Well, thank you. Hi. Delighted to be here today. So what I do now is I lead the digital and technology group in the venture fund for Manat, Phelps & Phillips, which is a large integrated professional services firm in the U.S. across the country. Spend a lot of time focusing on healthcare, on financial services, and digital entertainment, digital media as a firm. And although I personally am more of a healthcare person day to day, really for the last 20 years, I've been mostly a venture capitalist. Although I also teach venture capital at Berkeley. And before that, an entrepreneur. I've had my entrepreneurial activities along the way as well. But I helped build a large behavioral healthcare company back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So I'm delighted to be here. I have a podcast as well called Tectonic, so I love doing the payback.
Yes, right, exactly. So just describe, because you've been in healthcare innovation for so long, describe how you've seen it changed over the last couple of decades.
Wow, that just sounded like I'm so old. It's interesting. I think there was a time when we just didn't call it that, Mm-hmm. Now it's so popular to say innovation, as if it's some new thing. Well, obviously innovation itself is some new thing, but the concept of coming up with new ideas and starting new companies and finding new solutions is, as old as time. And now I think there's an emphasis on it as almost like a discipline. Mm-hmm. Instead of that, it's the natural and appropriate state of any good leadership to find new ways to do things, which is probably a mixed blessing, to be honest. There's also just a huge amount of energy at very large corporations to figure out how to innovate. I think ever since Clay Christensen published the Innovators prescription, everybody's been worried that they will, go the way of Blockbuster. And unfortunately, I mean, it, often turns out to be true. It's very hard to innovate from within at large organizations. So there's a lot of energy now that there didn't used to be, I think, on big companies working with, investing in, partnering with small companies to fill that gap. That's also, I think, a big change.
Yep. So how would you describe it today? I describe it as like this crazy roller coaster. How would you describe it?
If by it, you mean sort of the innovation ecosystem?
Yes. And just really the whole, trying to commercialize an innovation, whether you are an entrepreneur in a startup or whether you're one of these big behemoth companies that are trying to innovate within.
I'm not sure it's any harder now than it ever was. I think there's just a lot more people trying to do it. I think particularly over the last 10 years, as digital health has become more and more of a area of focus in its own right, and there's been something like $40 billion of venture investment in digital health, with the intersection of health care of one type or another and technology. There's just been a lot of chaos, I think. And, unlike in biotech or traditional medical devices, it's a lot easier to a certain extent to start these companies. And so there's a lot more of them. And so there does, I think, and it spawned, the whole digital health movement spawned all of these accelerators and incubators and a whole world of other people around this marketplace. And I think it does feel chaotic at times. And I think, there's, not just one type of, solution for this or that or two, but 40, so it's harder to tell, I think, what's going to work. When you're talking about health tech, I think by and large, biotech and pharma are also becoming part of this chaos, because we're starting to apply technology like AI and the like to discovery, to clinical trials. So it's all, sort of going faster and faster.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to be particularly discerning now. Not that you didn't always have to be discerning, but an even more amplified level of scrutiny has to be put on, your efforts, your strategies, your companies when you're trying to change things, because there's so much noise.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do you think that it is particularly complex or difficult to commercialize an innovation in healthcare as opposed to other industries?
Yeah, I just wrote an article about this. It's on my blog. It's called Venture Valkyrie. It's called, I don't remember the exact title, but it's about my 13 rules for healthcare entrepreneurs. And the reasons it's hard in healthcare are economics. The incentive, the financial incentives of the various players are not at all aligned in healthcare. Patients and providers and payers oftentimes are financially at odds with each other. There's a disequilibrium around the sharing of information, and the patient often has none. And the providers often have less than they need, and the payers have the wrong kind. It's really terrible. So there's an imperfect marketplace of information. There's massive numbers of regulations. So I was talking with a company yesterday, and they've sort of backed their way into a lot of regulatory areas they didn't even realize. Having expertise, regulatory expertise, is essential for most companies, even software companies sometimes, and they just simply do not understand that. And then also the buying cycles are very, very long, very long.
Yeah, a lot of companies, that I come across end up in the what I call the zombie graveyard before they actually start generating any type of sales, because they are just often not funded and not planning, especially if they've not been in healthcare before and they're coming for other industries, and they see this explosion of growth, and let me go in there and get my piece of pie really quick, and it's like, rude awakening.
Nothing happens quickly in healthcare.
No. So as you've worked as a venture capitalist or been an entrepreneur yourself, why do you think some innovations succeed and some fail? What are some of those key ingredients or key factors?
Well, they're related really to what I just said. I mean, you really have to have a deep understanding of who's going to pay and why they're going to pay, what their incentives are to participate with your product. Is it going to increase their revenue or decrease their revenue? Is it going to help them get a better financial outcome or not? Honestly, unfortunately, that is the number one driver, I think, of most healthcare adoption.
Sure.
Obviously, you have to have the clinical side of that too. You certainly need to appreciate how payment moves through the system, because a lot of people touch things in, like think about how a specialty drug gets to a person with a complex disease. There's 4, 5, 6, 10 touches on that before it gets to the patient. I think you have to have a pretty remarkable ability to be flexible and think about regulatory issues and design your product to fit within what is a very complex world, and be willing to accept help to do that if you're not a lawyer, which most entrepreneurs are not, or a regulatory lawyer anyway. And I think, we've gotten overly dependent on venture capital. I think people go too quickly for that kind of money.
Yeah, let's explore that a little bit, because I know that our listeners will be interested in that.
I think you have to, one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts is when I see companies who have things that are ultimately going to touch a patient, for instance. This is just for instance.
Yep.
And they haven't gone out and talked to any patients. I mean, they haven't done any user-centered design exploration at all. And they are just assuming because their grandmother had some particular problem and they observed it, that they've got the sonsolution for the entire marketplace.
Yep, all the time.
Drives me crazy. So I think, people need to spend a bunch of time way up front on understanding what people really want, the product market fit thing that people call it now, but really just, will the dogs eat your dog food?
Yep.
And unless you need lots of money to design that dog food, because it's a drug, for instance, and you need to go to the FDA with it, try to bootstrap it for a little while. Really try to get a clarity of thought about who will pay, why, and what it is you are exactly selling, and how long it's going to take to sell, and how long it's going to take to get paid, and whether you need all the things that you can think about without raising $25 million.
Yeah.
And I really, I think people have come to it too early a lot of times, to large amounts of money. They get caught up in this funny valuation game, and when they find themselves in your zombie graveyard.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, so like, why is that important? What's the consequence of going to venture capital too early?
Well, here's the worst case scenario.
Yep.
Sometimes, it works out. But the consequences are you use up a lot of money early, and then you need a lot more, but you haven't got enough to show for yourself that allows you to raise that.
Yep.
That may, first of all, result in you not being able to raise it. And secondly, may result in you being able to raise it, but at a lower valuation than last time, because now you're not selling a dream, you're selling some more reality, and it's measurable against the dream.
Yep.
And that is always difficult to enter into kind of a down round situation. And it happens all the time, but it's not a pleasant experience for anybody.
Sure.
I think the other thing is what I said earlier, is you get too far ahead of yourself with money, and haven't done enough work to validate your concept. It's just a waste of money. You just waste money. And in wasting that money, you've also given away ownership of your company early. So you don't want to end up having to give away so much of your company, because you need to raise so much more money that you have, effectively no real say or control in how it operates. So, we venture capitalists we're not super fun to hang out with, we want a lot of input and control to a certain extent. We obviously want management teams to run their companies, not to run their companies, but
sure,
it takes a lot of patience, to watch these companies grow. When they go sideways really early, it's really tough.
Yeah. So, in your experience, what is the optimal scenario, right? As a venture capitalist, what is kind of like, if you had your dream of the innovator walking in the door, what would they look like?
I'm not sure there's an answer to that question, because there's so much variation depending on what part of healthcare you're in and what problem you're trying to solve. If it's an administrative product, it's totally different than if it's a clinical product. If it's a medical device, it's totally different than it's a drug, than if it's software. There's just, But what I can give you a couple basic rules of thumb.
Okay.
When you walk in as an entrepreneur, you should be really savvy about your numbers and what you think they're going to be. You may not be totally right, but you should have a sense of it. You should be savvy about your marketplace, know the numbers, the market opportunity. And just because you have a women's health product doesn't mean 51% of the population is eligible to use it. You need to be clear on who your real customer base is.
Yeah. Yep.
It'd be good to have a diverse management team. Diverse management teams make more money. And while most management teams are not diverse, people are beginning to think about that in a more realistic way.
Absolutely. Yeah. More and more content being produced and getting that message out. Mm-hmm.
I think also you need to be really thoughtful about how to spend money. You have to be telling a story of using the money in a very judicious way, clear uses of capital, what it's going to cost to do things, know how that's going to get spent and what you're going to get for it milestone-wise. Because that's what investors really want to understand. What is it that they're buying in terms of progress? Many are welcome. Many investors are happy in doing seed and early stage things. There's a lot of investors that are fine with that, but they're going to want to see at the end of the 18 months of money that you actually achieve the milestones you said you were going to achieve.
Yeah, yeah. And I think some of the things that you're talking about are not necessarily rocket science, but we still need to talk about them and remind folks of some of the basics sometimes, because sometimes we get so enamored with it that we kind of forget the basics. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I see way too many entrepreneurs that are very excited about their technology, but they really forgot to like look up and say who's going to buy it.
Which is such a shame.
Yeah, it really is a shame.
So that kind of ties to this question that I wanted to ask you is, in your experience, what are some of the myths or false beliefs that you think health innovators have?
That's a good question. I think there's a false belief that consumers will pay for things out of pocket that insurance normally cover.
Mm-hmm.
I often hear companies saying that, well, we don't want to go to insurance companies to pay for it because it takes too long, so we'll go direct to consumer. Very tough. I mean, unless you're selling something that's more aligned with the beauty market or self-help, but not really medical in nature, it's almost impossible to do.
Yeah, I think consumers just expect it to be covered. They don't expect to pay out of pocket. I mean, what's your take on that?
If it's something that would normally be covered by insurance, I think that's correct. I think you might be able to find a few people who are willing to pay for something, but once you've gotten out of, New York City, Boston, and San Francisco, it gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
I think, another myth is that, if you build it, they will come, right? If you build something that actually improves surgery or, produces a better clinical outcome, that everybody will want it. Well, that's not always true, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If it improves outcome but reduces somebody's income by considerable amount, they may not want it. They may not pay for it. And it's, worth understanding again, back to the economic dynamics of what you have to deliver in exchange for the reduction in revenue that makes it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, follow the money is sort of the most important mantra. And, again, It's very important, but it is true.
Yeah.
Other myths. Oh, my personal favorite. Tech people could come in and change healthcare the way all these healthcare people have screwed it up so bad. Absolutely true that people coming from the tech world can do things and think about things differently and freshly in a way that we do not from the healthcare side, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But not understanding how the healthcare system works, how money flows, how regulations work, how all of that is your downfall. So you really need both. You need to bring smart people from both sides of the world along with you, or you will not probably be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other myths or false beliefs before we move on?
I'm sure there's tons
I feel like you have this soapbox of stuff.
I do.
Yeah. All these pet peeves that you encounter, and you're like, ah.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think another thing is when you meet with venture capitalists, I think a lot of people feel like they have to tell the most fantastical story in the world. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's correct. I mean, if you get so fantastical that it's hard to believe, you've crossed the line, and you're putting financial projections on a piece of paper that look like they're going to go from 0 to 100 million in 5 years, which is the standard thing I think people must print off the internet. It's very rare, almost impossible for that to happen. And so, be realistic. I mean, optimistic, but realistic about what you have, what you know, what you can do, what you can achieve. Yes, you have to tell a great story and build a vision of why this can be a great company and produce great returns. Mm-hmm. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
But if you get so far ahead of yourself and, to the point where you've lost credibility, you're not going to help yourself.
Sure. So as you kind of indicated at the beginning of the conversation, there's this explosion of healthcare innovation, right? More players in the mix in the ecosystem than it seems like ever before. How does a health innovator rise above the noise, right? So you think about these buyers of healthcare innovation, bless you, especially in the, the B2B world, that have people knocking on their doors all day, every day. So how do
Hmm.
you rise above the noise to create that awareness and that demand?
Yeah. It's getting harder and harder, I think. I mean, I think, again, you have to come in with a clear understanding of the problem the person you're meeting with is likely facing,
Yep.
a clear understanding and ability to describe how you're going to solve it within the context of their environment,
Mm-hmm.
and what evidentiary-based results you're going to provide to them.
Yeah.
What are you going to save them? What are you going to create new for them business-wise, solving a workflow problem, whatever. Really the clear benefits and a way to prove it. If you haven't done enough to prove it yet, a way to prove it with them and a willingness to be open about it, and strike deals with people that allow that evidence to be created.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's I think this rise of companies has resulted appropriately in a rise of skepticism that is
Mm-hmm.
abated only by proof, value-based proof. And coming with proof or coming with a plan to get it is really, really important, and being open to that.
So let's talk about that a little bit. There's a lot of talk in the industry about pilots, and I think you and I talked early
Mhm.
on about, pilot purgatory and death by pilot and, proof of concept engagements. And then, we've had some conversations around peer reviewed studies. How far does an innovator need to go in order to actually build that value-based proof? Do I need one pilot? Do I need a specific size of pilot? Do I need it to be a, more rigorous peer-reviewed study because there's less credibility around pilot, data and structure? What do you think?
Again, I don't know that there's a hard and fast answer, and I think it depends on the industry you're in.
Yeah.
The part of this you're in. But, and I laugh whenever I've gotten in my head now, whenever people talk about pilots, I think about how you want to be Charles Lindbergh, not Amelia Earhart. But
Yeah.
I think the important thing with pilots is that the customer believes it's worth paying for the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
They believe there's something of, enough value potential here that they pay for some of it. I think you have to be willing to publish what comes out of it, no matter how good or bad it is. I think you have to do some early pilots that are just tests with friendly folk without, pretending that's revenue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you have to, when you're in a real paid pilot, have a contract that says, if I meet these particular milestones, I actually get there. The contract for how you're going to turn this into a commercial agreement is already written.
Yep. Agreed.
So, I mean, those are pieces of the puzzle. But I mean, you have to commit as an organization to studying and testing. I mean, you have to do the clinical trial or the financial study or whatever it might be. You have to do it. You can't shortcut around it, or you will ultimately regret that decision.
Have you encountered, so sometimes I hear this conversation of, I'm a health innovator. I went to this health system. They were interested in my pilot. They didn't want to pay for it, or that if they were going to have to commit to something in the more long term, then there almost becomes like some skin in the game, because the health system is saying, like, I'm not going to invest all this time and effort into helping you actually like build and grow your product and your business for free. Otherwise I'll just do that myself. Do you see that as well?
I do. I see oftentimes that companies who are the pilot site, would like some equity if, the pilot goes well. I think in the earliest days, that's fine and appropriate to a certain extent. But if you're doing a couple of those, that should be it.
Right. You don't be like,
commercial, if you're at number 10 pilot where you're giving away equity, you're doing something incorrect, most likely.
Right. Yeah. You don't want to find yourself, you get a piece of my company, you get a piece of my company, you get a piece of my company, you get a piece of my company. Otherwise something's wrong there.
You should have created enough value that people are willing to pay you for it.
Right. Yep, exactly. 100%. So what would be some advice that you would have to our listeners that are in the trenches right now? So we've got a mix. So there's folks that are innovators that are emergent startups, and then we've got some folks that are innovating internally as well within bigger organizations. So what are some of the advice and guidance that you have for them?
Well, I would look, I actually would go look at the article I wrote about this a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
I think those are good guidelines for companies, and I've seen so many thousands of companies. I feel like those are pretty good rules. I think you have to be patient, especially in large organizations. You have to be a coalition builder. It's very hard to change practices in large organizations. It's very hard. You have to spend more time getting the buy-in than you do building the product.
Sure. Yep.
You have to be willing to fight that fight. And you probably also need to be separated out from the main organization to a certain extent, so you have the freedom to break the rules. For young innovators, or young company entrepreneurs, also that, be patient with yourself. It takes a long, long time. This is not an industry where you start a company and sell it in 3 years. Occasionally it happens, but it's extraordinarily rare. More venture-backed companies in healthcare take 10 or 12 years to exit than less than 5, by a long shot. And I think you have to be in it, for the long game, and not start your company thinking about exit. That is a mistake. You need to start your company thinking about solving problems and proving that you solve problems, and really nurturing that opportunity until you've got it down.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. So how can people best get a hold of you, and where can they find that article that you referred to?
The article is on my blog at venturevalkyrie.com. It is just a couple weeks old, so it's pretty easily found. And if you go there and just do a search for 13 rules, you'll find it. That's also how you reach me. You can find me through the blog or through LinkedIn.
Okay. All right. Excellent. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
What's the difference between launching and commercializing a healthcare innovation? Many people will launch a new product. Few will commercialize it. To learn the difference between launch and commercialization, and to watch past episodes of the show, head to our video show page at drroxie.com. Thanks so much for watching and listening to the show. You can subscribe to the latest episodes on your favorite podcast app, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or subscribe to the video episodes on our YouTube channel. No matter the platform, just search CoI'Q with Dr. Roxie. Until next time, let's raise our CoI'Q.